It was the kind of heat that makes the world feel heavy. It wasn't windy. There wasn't even a breeze to shake the leaves. It was just a calm, suffocating summer afternoon. We were 4 friends, me, Leo, Sarah, and Maya, just walking through the forest, looking for a spot to cool down. We thought we knew these woods. We thought we knew every path and every shortcut, but the deeper we walked, the quieter it got. Usually, a forest is loud. You hear birds, bugs, the wind in the branches. But this was dead silence. It felt like the trees were holding their breath, watching us. We were sweating, tired, and our water bottles were empty. That's when we found the cabin. It sat in a small clearing, surrounded by tall grass that didn't move. It looked old, made of dark, almost black wood that seemed to absorb the sunlight. It shouldn't have been there. It looked like it had grown out of the ground like a mushroom. There was no path leading to the door, just the grass, perfect and untouched. "I need water," Maya whispered. Her voice sounded dry, like sandpaper rubbing together. We walked toward the cabin. I remember the air getting colder the closer we got. It wasn't a natural cold. It was the damp, heavy cold of a basement or a cave. Leo knocked on the door. The sound was dull, like he was hitting wet earth instead of wood. The door drifted open on its own. It didn't squeak. It just swung inward, revealing a darkness that smelled of wet dirt and old, sweet flowers. We stepped inside because the heat outside was unbearable, and the cool air pulling us in felt like a relief. Inside, it was simple. A wooden floor, a few chairs, and a heavy table in the center. But on the table, there were 4 glasses of water, just sitting there. They were tall, crystal glasses, looking totally out of place in this rough cabin. The water was clear, and condensation was dripping down the sides, pooling on the wood. It looked ice cold. "Is anyone home?" Sarah called out. Her voice didn't echo. The room swallowed the sound immediately. No one answered. But the house didn't feel empty. It felt waiting. Maya didn't wait. She was so thirsty. She walked straight to the table and picked up a glass. I wanted to stop her. I had this feeling in my gut, a tight knot telling me that you don't drink water you find in an abandoned cabin in the middle of nowhere. But my throat was so dry. We all watched her. She lifted the glass to her lips and drank. She closed her eyes and sighed. "It's sweet," she whispered. "It tastes like salt and silk." That was the moment everything changed. It wasn't a sudden explosion. It was subtle. The light coming through the windows shifted from sunny yellow to a bruised, sickly purple. The door behind us didn't slam shut, but when I turned to look, it was gone. Just a smooth wall of dark wood where the exit used to be. "Maya?" Leo asked. He took a step toward her. Maya turned around. She was smiling, but her eyes were wrong. They were too wide, and she wasn't blinking. The condensation on the glass she was holding turned black, like ink. "You should drink," she said softly. "It makes the noise stop." "What noise?" I asked. The forest was silent. The cabin was silent. "The noise of being alive," she said. And then I heard it. A low humming sound, vibrating up through the floorboards, into my boots, into my bones. It was the sound of the house waking up. We were trapped in a box that was slowly starting to digest us, and Maya was already part of it. Leo was the first to snap. He didn't scream, he just lunged at the wall where the door used to be. He slammed his shoulder into the wood, expecting it to break or at least make a thud. But it didn't sound like wood. It made a wet, slapping sound, like hitting raw meat. "Let us out!" "Ah!" he roared, pounding his fists against the dark panels. I watched in horror as the wood didn't splinter. Instead, it bruised. Where Leo struck the wall, the dark timber turned a sickly purple and yellow, spreading out like a contusion on human skin. "Leo, stop!" Sarah cried, pulling at his arm. "You're hurting it." She didn't say, "You're hurting yourself." She said, "You're hurting it." The realization made my stomach turn over. We backed away toward the center of the room, huddling under the single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The light was buzzing now, a frantic, angry sound like a trapped wasp. I looked at Miyy. She hadn't moved. She was still standing by the table, staring at the glass of black liquid. "Why are you doing this, Miyy?" I asked. My voice was trembling so bad I could barely get the words out. She looked up. Her face was smooth, too smooth. It looked like someone had ironed out all the lines of worry and fear. "I'm not doing it," she said dreamily. "I'm just listening. The house is hungry, but it's patient. It likes the taste of fear before it eats. It seasons the meat." "We need to break a window," I said to Leo. I tried to ignore what Miyy was saying. "Grab a chair." Leo nodded, sweat pouring down his face. He grabbed one of the heavy wooden chairs and swung it with all his strength at the window. We expected the crash of glass. We braced ourselves for the fresh air, but the chair just bounced off. The window wasn't glass, it was something soft and rubbery. The view outside, the trees, the tall grass didn't move. I walked closer and touched the pane. It was warm. It wasn't a window looking out. It was an eye looking in. We were standing inside a giant rectangular pupil. "Oh God," Sarah whispered. She was looking at the floor. "Guys, look at the floor." I looked down. The wooden planks were disappearing. In their place, thousands of fine black hairs were sprouting up. They were growing fast, weaving together, rising up over the toes of our boots. It looked like black mold, but it was moving. It was swaying to a breeze that we couldn't feel. I tried to kick it away, but it clung to my leather boots. It was sticky. "Don't let it touch your skin," I warned them. "Whatever you do, don't let it touch your skin." The room began to tilt. It wasn't a steep tilt, just enough to make us lose our balance. The table slid a few inches. The glass of black water didn't spill. It stayed perfectly level, defying gravity. Miyy finally moved. She walked over to one of the walls. She ran her hand lovingly over the bruising wood, over the patches of sprouting hair. "It remembers everyone who comes here," Miyy said. She turned to us, and I saw that her teeth were gone. Her mouth was just smooth pink gums. The hair, it's theirs. It keeps their hair so it can remember the texture of them. "Who?" Leo screamed. "Whose hair?" "The hikers," she smiled, a gummy, terrible smile. "The lost ones, the ones who wanted to cool down." Suddenly, the light bulb above us popped. Not with a bang, but with a wet squelch. Darkness flooded the room. Complete, absolute darkness. For a second, there was silence. Then, I heard Sarah screaming. "Something touched me. Something wet just touched my face." I fumbled for my phone in my pocket. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped it. I fell to my knees to find it, but my hands didn't land on wood. They landed on the hair. It was thick now, like a carpet, and it was warm. I could feel a pulse beating underneath it. Thump, thump, thump. I found my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, filled with dust and spores. I shone the light on Sarah. She was clawing at her cheek. There was a long, thin smear of clear slime running from her ear to her chin. "Look up," Leo whispered. His voice was gone, just a husk of terror. I pointed the flashlight at the ceiling. It wasn't a ceiling anymore. It was a rib cage. Massive, arched bones were visible through the translucent, fleshy material of the roof. And hanging from those ribs, wrapped in the same black silk and hair, were the cocoons. Dozens of them. Some were old and dried out. Some were fresh and wet. And one of them was wearing a hiking boot that looked exactly like the one Miyy had been wearing 10 minutes ago. I swung the light back to where Miyy had been standing. She was gone. Her clothes were there. Her jeans, her t-shirt, her empty boots, lying in a pile on the floor. But Miyy was gone.